Okay folks, this video is going to be about poverty hacks. So I'm not going to be discussing a lot of autobiographical information here, but I just want to say that this kind of stuff definitely helped me at one point, and it might help you as well. I've never dealt with like dire poverty in terms of having to choose between, you know, having running water and having a meal to eat in a day, but I've dealt with periods of low resources and hardship, and these are just some tips I came up with momentarily about a couple hours after my shift at work. So this is not exhaustive. I'm not judging anyone who starts out poor or who ends up poor, because a lot of people are just kind of functioning on impulse, and there's no point in harshly judging someone when you have an opportunity to learn from them and to teach alongside them. You know, we're all travelers on the road to becoming as wise as we can. So anyway, here we go. If you are overweight and you've been deduced by an appropriate professional to be able to partake in water fasting, then I'd recommend using the cheapest instant coffee you possibly can as a means by which to suppress your appetite if you find that caffeine does suppress your appetite. And in general, when you're eating, you want to try to follow the maybe the commonplace Japanese rule, which is expressed as like hara hachibu, meaning eat until you're 80% full. Also, you want to try out secular meditation methods if you can aestheticize a sort of calm, quiet, alone time and not be preoccupied with constant exertion and with keeping yourself in a state of motion that keeps you stressed out and subtly aging faster than you should. So I would recommend using things like breath awareness meditation, non-judgmental awareness meditation, maybe certain kinds of compassion meditation, because I've found that these practices are easy to learn, and yet they're highly profitable in terms of what they do for your psychological health. I'd also recommend long-form writing using complementary materials from libraries, grocery stores, art supply shops, etc. Sometimes you can go to the clearance section of certain places and find cheap materials with which to write, and if you can't think of anything to write, just write a letter to your favorite historical figure. Maybe, Jesus, or, a famous rabbi or something. Seek markdown items whenever you can. Also, if you're into working out, and you probably should be in general, pretty much all of us should be, especially in North America, and you want to try like a pre-workout that keeps you calm and focused and stabilized in the moment of what you're doing, I would recommend getting the cheapest accessible chamomile tea you can buy, and use 1 or 2 cups of chamomile tea as your pre-workout, because they will not only be cheaper per serving than the standard caffeinated pre-workouts, but they might help you more easily focus on your exercise form, and so stay safer across time as you work out, even if your individual pumps or PRs might not be quite as impressive as they would be were you to maximally caffeinate yourself in the present. Also, consider like single spice samplings, or single spice obsessions, or just rotating spices. I know spices aren't necessarily cheap everywhere, but I find that using lemon pepper or tahini can make like a $1 meal taste absolutely lavish. So the other day, thanks to a wonderful loved one, I ate rice and lentils with tahini, and that probably cost less than maybe $1.50, $1.25 maximum. And yet it was more subjectively enjoyable than like an $8 or $10 meal I had. And I'd also recommend book tasting or chapter sampling, meaning that you go to a bookstore or library and just read the opening chapters of certain books and see whether or not anything piques your fancy. And then there's something, I don't know what else to call this, but it's like quote graffiti. So take certain slips of paper if you can and record your favorite quotes on them, and then just place those pieces of paper in random places, like in public, assuming that they're not quotes that feature anything vulgar or inappropriate for the young. So I did this once with a former partner of mine. We just kind of went to a public library area and slipped a bunch of paper pieces with quotes on them and some random books as well as some of our favorite books. So, yeah, these are just some things you might want to do if you are financially down on your luck. You know, poverty is not a character flaw. It is not a sign that you are stupid. It is not a sign that you are somehow not favored by God or not worthy of any of the nice things in life or just doing something atrociously bad. I'd say in most cases, whether people start out or become poor, it's largely due to the fact that they're recipients of impulses, whims, desires, suspicions, intimations, hunches, impressions that they didn't really plan to have. So it's important for us to stay compassionate toward each other, you know. I don't necessarily need these tips today, although I'm not financially impressive, to put it lightly. But I figure this might get the mental gears turning for people who not only are poor, but they feel some sort of deep self-critical attitude in the midst of their poverty, you know. I think it was Alex Hormozy who said something like, our greatest form of suffering is believing there's something wrong with our suffering. So I'm hoping that these kinds of tips, albeit non-exhaustive as they are, can help you endure whatever you're dealing with some dignity, you know. They help me, and this is not a complete list of everything I've sampled or looked into. But yeah, thank you for watching and have a good day. God bless you.